human trafficking in persons. So Wibena Impact is positioning itself to be a Pan-African organization that is based in Rwanda and Kenya as well. One of our main focus is basically to empower youth and women. We also focus on safe migration. We do also a lot on WASH program as well as environment and climate changes. So as the founder of the organization, we saw that there is need to come up with such an initiative to ensure that youth women are fully empowered. So that is shortly the brief about Wibena.
Thank you, Wycliffe. Thank you for hopping on board, for organizing this, because without Wibena and without G-Talk, we would not be having this very important conversation at such a time-sensitive period as we are in right now. So thank you so much. And thank you. And with that, I would like to welcome someone from G-Talk to hop on and also talk to us a little bit about G-Talk. So for the guys who are joining us, Wibena and G-Talk are the organizations behind this conversation we're having today. So they are great organizations that focus on, as Wycliffe has said, focus on the issue of human trafficking. And that is a conversation which we are getting into. So let me invite the lady from G-Talk. Her name is Judie. Yes, hi.
Yeah, hi. It's actually good afternoon. My name is Judie Kaberia. I'm a multiple award-winning journalist. Currently, I'm a fellow of the Resilience Fund, which is a project of the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. So I've been reporting and researching on human trafficking and harvesting of body organs in East Africa. So basically, Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime has been at the forefront, empowering journalists, especially to ensure that there's continuous reporting. And it's not just reporting for the sake of reporting or looking like a big journalist or reporting just to fill up the space, but basically supporting journalists to go into in-depth analysis, a lot of research, a lot of data collection, and with focus on issues. For example, if I look at what I've benefited from this fellowship at G-Talk, for example, one of them is, giving us mentors, very well-experienced international mentors, like have been working with a mentor called Rex Merrifield. He's quite experienced. Someone is written for the Washington Post and so many other big media organizations. And with this kind of teaming up, we've been able to bring out issues. And one of the issues I remember I started off was, like, for example, to identify the gaps within our legal system. The good thing, yes, sometimes with those stories, that's quite controversial, backlash, especially with the government. Sometimes I'm not very happy when we start complaining about those gaps. But with time, they come to accept, yes, what you are raising is an important issue. And so apart from identifying the legal issues, also identify the lack of shelter houses for victims of human trafficking. So with that support, I was able to go all the way to Mombasa, where several girls had been trafficked to Kenya from Nepal. And it was very sad, to look at these women. They don't speak the language. They don't understand what you're saying. But it was very depressing that they were rescued, but they were taken to a police cell. So just listening to them, sharing their stories, the experiences, what they're going through, actually, it's basically humanizing the story. And one of the things that G-Talk has really been doing is to tell the story differently so that people can start understanding how closely are they related to issues of human trafficking. And by highlighting this story, I showed what it means if you rescue a victim, you take them to a cell. That is further victimizing them. And after they were taken to the police cell, they were then returned back to their country. Then what does that say about our prosecution and investigation when it comes to issues of human trafficking? So through that story, I was able to tackle the issue of lack of shelters, and I was able to tackle the issue of lack of evidence or lack of prosecution, because if you don't have a complainant, the complainant has already left the country. So whom do you take to court? So through that reporting, we are able to bring out different issues. And again, with this support, as a journalist, I did a story about the victims trafficked from Tanzania, mostly for purposes of begging. And this was, in the middle of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. The good thing with doing such a report is that the story was very good in terms that we got the support of the government. Again, despite those inconsistencies, the government came on board. We were able to supply a lot of food, masks, sanitizers, to very many, not just the beggars from Tanzania, but were actually able to, help. So another thing that I like about GI Talk, especially the Resilience Fellowship, is the emphasis on impact. And actually, most of those stories that I've done were quite impactful. In fact, one of them, I got the award, the Labor and Immigration Award, that was done in conjunction also with the IGAD and the IOM, and I think several other organizations. So basically, the emphasis has been so much on impact, going beyond the talk to implementation and acquiring the results. So basically, it's not been an easy journey. And recently, we did a story. Up to now, I don't think we are still okay. Some of the people I work with, I can see them here. And basically, we just highlighted the plight of over 100 girls who have been trafficked from Uganda to Kenya. They were living in deplorable conditions, tough times, and all that. But I think the government was caught unaware, or they knew the situation and maybe they were supposed to have done something, they didn't do it. It received a lot of backlash. The shelters were shut down just after the story was aired. I think 2 days after it was aired, the shelters were shut down. And the CSO was seriously warned for starting up the shelters. But the happy side of it is that GI Talk donated 2,000 USD for us to buy mattresses, bed sheets, food stuff, basins, and all that that these girls required, or the organization, that's the CHITEA, that's required. Again, a volunteer donated a 5-story building, a 3-story building to the organization. And it's got I think about over 20 rooms where now, the conditions are better. It's in a safer location. So you can see, despite sometimes as rubbing people the wrong way, I'm so happy that we got the support that we required. GI Talk has been able to support the journalists. And I can really say the emphasis of also working together. As a journalist, I've been able to network with different organizations and be able to, uplift the work of the CSOs, because we need to really have a closer working relationship between the media and the CSOs, especially all the ones that are working in this field of human trafficking, because the issues are very complex. And we also need to train the journalists because, let's say, I've been concentrating on this for the 1.5 years so far. So you can imagine my experience and all the knowledge that I've gained. So how then do we ensure that we train or mentor other journalists? Because the younger ones that will come after Judie, I've been in the media for over 16 years. And so we need to see then how do we empower others so that we continue amplifying the voice of the work that the CSOs are doing, and at the same time trying to uplift and talk about issues that's required to be addressed. Look at the issues of also the Middle East. Every day we are seeing very sad cases of women suffering. Just yesterday, I received a very sad video. They're dumped somewhere in a shelter in their 20s, very many girls. Then what is the issue? So the media should go beyond just saying these girls are suffering, they are crying. It becomes a cliche. So how do we then go to address what is the problem? And the problem is the legal system in those countries, for example, the kafara system. So how then do we get the media to highlight the real issues that addresses the problem rather than the reactionary of the emotions, the Woye situation? So this is the kind of support that I think we need to give the journalists. And I'm so happy that through the support of GI Talk, we're able to do that together with the team here led by Joyce Kimani. She's really been there. Even all this time I was working in Kenya and very worried about my security. She kept on asking, Judie, if you need to leave the country, we can rescue you or we can be able to protect you. So basically, GI Talk has done a lot of work, and I can attest to that, having worked with them very closely. Thank you very much, Joy.
Thank you, Judie. You have done a very good job of articulating what GI Talk stands for. The work that this organization, the very important work that this organization is doing beyond just, as you said, just the Woye situation. And I am very excited about the impact angle that the organization takes, because it is very important to not only have conversations and elicit reactions and emotions, but also what is the way forward? What are we doing? So thank you very much. Thank you again for being here and for organizing this for us. I really do appreciate it. Now, I would like us to get into the conversations for the day. And for that, I will invite my co-host to come back on and introduce our panelists. So, Karibu. Hi, Mike.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you, Judie Kaberia, for sharing a wonderful impact that you are making. So today is a very wonderful day because we are discussing an important topic that is an issue that is affecting millions of people across Africa and in the world, but mostly in our region, because Judie Kaberia told us about people who were trafficked from Uganda, from Tanzania, from Kenya, from Nepal. So it's a worldwide issue, as you understand. So today we are grateful to have our important panelists. So we have Rasha Hafal. Rasha Hafal is founder. She is the founder of Youth Against Slavery Movement. We also have Masisi Janvier, who is the global poet, Rwandan. We are also having Patience Iribagiza, founder of Afro, based in Rwanda. And we will have Naima Issa Sebi, refugee rights and peace activist. And then, of course, Wycliffe Aganda, the founder of Wibena Impact, who is here with us. We also have our speaker who will share some experience, Wanja Kimani, Regional Director of Voices for the Oppressed Movement, as well as Judie Kaberia, as I said before. So Joy, I think I'm done with all the panelists. So we can start our panel discussion. So you're going to lead the first session of questions, and then we will proceed. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Mike.
I think I've not forgotten anyone.
No, you haven't. Thank you. Our panelists, welcome. Karibuni sana. So again, my name is Jyoti Nyuzi, and my first question is, why are you in the line of work that you are in? So I will start with you, Rasha. Why are you in the line of work that you're in, and why is this work important? Hello, Rasha. Hello, can you hear me?
I think Rasha is not around. We can proceed.
Okay. So, Patience. Hi, Patience. Are you here?
Hi, Joy. I'm here. I'm okay. How about you?
You're good?
Yeah,
I'm
very
well. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks too for having me.
So tell me, why are you in this work? Why are you invested in the work against human trafficking?
Thank you so much. As Dov said, I'm the founder of a youth and women-led organization based here in Rwanda called Afro, which is the African Ark Bible for those who read the Bible. And what we do mostly is overcoming hardships faced by women, youth, and children, mostly for the vulnerable groups in that category. we work around human rights, women and girls' rights mostly, and also sexual and reproductive health rights and services, and entrepreneurship, including cross-border trade, and also HIV prevention and management. So it's more of the group who we target, or our target group, is the most vulnerable, at high risk of being trafficked. So we don't mainly focus. It's part of our interest that we are working with these people, and given that they are working order, one of the things that's really how makers have the interest in human trafficking, these people are at high risk of being trafficked, given the lifestyle they're living, the income, mostly including, I didn't mention, mainly the teenage mothers and female sex workers. Sometimes these are the people who are kind of ignored in the communities or the societies we live in, who should be catered for to avoid the coincidence of being trafficked. Because these female sex workers, these are the people who sleep with each and every person whom they don't even know. They are sexually exploited. These are the people who are in a situation where they're like, if I get a chance of getting a better payment, I'll go for it. And given that if you could go down to the ground, they're very terrific stories. Laid for 500. If they get a chance of even getting paid, they get paid. If you look at human trafficking, it doesn't mostly affect the people who are educated, the people. Yes, some are, yes, but the bigger number, it's these vulnerable people, and mostly women. In Rwanda, we don't have a concrete look at the research that was done by Never Again. You find that more women were more exposed to human trafficking, and mostly these groups and that we are working with. So having worked with these people in our intervention areas as an organization, it gives us a picture of what we should tackle, where we should not even where we should go beyond towards advancing people's rights, mostly women, concerning this, because it's a right. So I would say that's why we are working in this area, and there's so much learn more and do better.
Thank you. Thank you, Patience, for the tremendous work you are doing and for pointing us in the direction of this conversation. I mean, the theme for this year's World Day Against Trafficking of Persons is Victims' Voices Lead the Way. So thank you for even pointing us in that angle by talking about the vulnerable people, how traffickers target women and commercial sex workers, and talking about the economic demographic of the same, which is a conversation which we will get into. So thank you so much. You have done such a solid introduction. So thank you. I don't know if Racha is back. Okay, if not, then I will move on to Naima. Naima, are you here?
Yes, I am, Joy.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. So Naima, why are you in this work and why is it important?
Thank you very much, Joy, for the question. So on top of being a refugee rights and peace advocate, I'm a feminist lawyer and I work with FIDA Uganda. And one of the thematic areas of FIDA Uganda is enhancing access to justice for women and girls. Yes, and so based on the thematic area and my passion as a woman and the fact that I'm a feminist lawyer, I'm so invested into human trafficking because if you look at the statistics, it states that 71% of persons being trafficked are women and girls. So to me, using my gender or feminist lens, I have to look beyond the statistics of 71% as a number, but look at what causes the 71% or the numbers to keep surging for women and girls. And if I'm going to be a women's human rights lawyer and a voice for the women and a fighter for women's rights, we need to look at what causes the women to be the major targets for our traffickers and people who are participating in gender slavery. So the reason I'm invested in is because I am a women's human rights and I have to look for solutions to ensure that women are protected and they have justice against the people or the perpetrators of trafficking. So that's one of the major reasons I am into that. And we need to also look into the situation of just not making numbers and saying it's the women who are being trafficked more, but what is it that we're doing wrong as a society, as a community, as a government, and as individuals? Why is it that women are being targeted more? So we need to dig deeper. And the reason I'm invested is I need to dig deeper and empower women and make them realize that they have choices, they have options. It's not about trafficking as the last resolution, because some are not targeted. Some are willing to go because the choices back at home do not give them any option to decide to stay. So they need to go because as mothers and women, we need to provide for our children, we need to provide for the community. And what other way to do it other than, risk your life so that you can take care of your family and your children. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm invested into human trafficking and modern day slavery. Thank you.
Thank you, Naima. Again, you have highlighted the issue of the financial gap and highlighted about the demographic of women being trafficked more than men, but going further and questioning why. And these are issues that I'm hoping we will get into as well. So thank you, Naima. Masisi, why is this conversation an important conversation to have? Conversation against trafficking of persons. Masisi, can you hear me? Okay, then I will move on to Wanja.
Hi.
Hi, Wanja, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much. Sorry to just cut you in for a second, but to the guys, to everyone who's here. So Wanja is coming in not only as a panelist, but she's also going to share her story. So Wanja, karibu sana.
Thank you.
So why is this a conversation to have? I mean, I know it's a personal story for you, but why is this a conversation we should have now, and why is it important?
Well, I think human trafficking is closer home than we think. And I think we tend to ignore it until it happens to us or to someone we know personally. So I was looking for work because there has been a crisis in my country. Most people are not employed, even though they are educated. So
which country is this?
This is Kenya.
Sorry. Okay.
So I was looking for work and I came across some job adverts about house-to-house cleaning in the Middle East. I felt it would be safe because upon following up, I was told house-to-house means that I would be working in a different house every day. So I took the opportunity and I left my passport. I already had a passport, so I left it at the agency. When the day of the travel came, that's when we were given the contracts to sign. And upon looking at the terms, I felt like, no, this is not it. So when I wavered, I was told I need to refund the money, the recruitment fees. And at that point I had given, they did not specify, and I did not even care to find out, because at that point I had given away everything. I had given away all of the furniture, everything, even my own clothes, because I was sure I was going. Yeah, and I was, yeah, so I did not even bother to find out how much was the recruitment fee. So I just took it and said I will sort it out when I get there. Initially, I had talked to the agents and told them, I hope nobody is taking away my documents. So immediately we landed. I was among other ladies. Immediately we landed, our passports were taken away. When we went to the office, also our phones were taken away. And when we went to work, I found out that I would be working in one house for 3 or 4 months. And once you go to work, nobody follows up on you. So even if you're mistreated or you're overworked, the office won't know unless you mention it to them. So when I was working, I remember working for 20 hours straight without food. And I felt so sick. I became so sick because I remember my hands, my feet, my face were all swollen. And you remember I'm working without food, and it's 44 degrees every day. The sun is really hot from 3 a.m. Yeah, so I became very sick and I felt like I was going to die. So I contacted the agency in Kenya. And when I talked to them, they demanded for 200,000 shillings, which is around $2,000. And I obviously could not raise that much money. Remember, I had gone to work because my little boy, I have 2 kids. So one of the kids needs surgery. He was born with a heart condition. So remember, I was going to work so that I can raise money for surgery. I can raise money for my master's degree. I can raise money for the school fees of this other child. So when somebody is asking me for 200,000 shillings, if I had the 200,000, I would not even leave my country in the first place. So I put up a post on Facebook, and people reacted, and that's how now the agency was put on the spot, and I was blackmailed. I was told all sorts of things by this particular agency. So the agency in Saudi took me back to their office, and then they took me for deportation. But when they took me to that deportation camp, they were putting me there so that maybe I would change my mind. I would be so desperate. I would see that I am not working. My family needs me, so I would be desperate and return to work. But I stood my ground. I said I will not go back to that work no matter what. So I continued liaising with my friends, and they contacted their own connections, and they even came up with a Twitter hashtag, release Wanja, and it went viral. And that's how IOM contacted the Kenyan embassy in Riyadh, and I was released within hours. And that's a place where I found ladies that have been stranded for over 9 months, not working.
At the camp?
Yes, at the deportation camp. There are ladies that have stayed there for over 9 months with no hope of returning home. Some had even been accused falsely when they were not able to work because the work conditions were harsh. The employers falsely accused them of stealing money, which is a lot of money, unreasonably a lot of money. So one of the ladies had been accused falsely. She had been in and out of jail. You could see even the chain marks on her hands and feet. Like, it's a tricky situation. You know, that once your employer accuses you of something, nobody has the time to go find out if you did it or you did not. Remember, you are a foreigner. Remember, they themselves don't have rights. So who are you? And I mean, it's a hopeless situation, and most people go there because of their economic vulnerability. So I wouldn't blame anyone. And of course, it's like it's like a marriage. When you're getting into it, you don't expect it to turn out badly. So when we are going there, nobody expects that it will turn out for the worst. So everybody goes there hoping for the best, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. And sometimes just because nothing unfortunate has happened, nothing bad has happened, people ignore that this is still human trafficking. Yeah, so I think we need to create more awareness. That's why I'm in the line of work that I do, because I think people need to learn that just because it has not happened to them, it is not real. So it is real whether it happens to them or not. So yeah, I'm here to create awareness, and I'm here to share my personal experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wanja. Thank you for telling us your story. We are glad you're back home. Thank you for trusting this space to be able to share your story. There's a lot to build up on Wanja's story, because this is a story that unfortunately is very true to many women and young men who go to look for work. And so my question is, what is the difference between traveling abroad to look for work and human trafficking? And I would ask Naima to answer this.
Joy, sorry, I got glitches when you're submitting. My network is kind of not stable. Kindly requesting you ask the question again.
Okay, so my question is, what is the difference between human trafficking and someone traveling abroad to look for work, and how do you distinguish the two?
Well, thank you for the question. So I'll start with traveling abroad to look for work. When you are going to work genuinely, I think all the elements of a contract and employment should be in place. For example, you should be aware of what your terms of work are, what the contract you're going for states, what are the benefits you're going to get at the end of it, and what are you going to be paid at the end of the work you're going to provide. So going abroad to work, there are rules and regulations that guide that, and it's clear straight out of the table. There are no hidings of what this is. And if, let's say, the term is in, let's say, French or Arabic, you also availed a translation of your terms of contract in the language you understand. And I think when going abroad, you need to also understand that when you're going to work abroad, that the terms, that the laws governing that country are somehow compatible to the country you live in, so that in case of any dispute, you know where to run for redress. And it is also stipulated in the terms of contract where to go for redress in case of dispute, and who is liable in case of a breach, and which breach makes one party liable. So when you're going abroad for work, genuinely, these are the things you should look at as an individual. When it comes to trafficking, first of all, you are desperate. The way you are being recruited is not clear. There are so many agents or agencies that are claiming to be a connection to wherever you're going to work. When you want to ask about your terms, be vigilant and ask for the terms. Sometimes it's not clear what terms of work you're going to do, what are the terms you're going to use in relation to the work you're going to do. It's not clear on whether, in case of dispute, what laws will govern the party, the relationship you have with your employer. It is never clear. And most times, if you look at the documentations they use for your work, it's in a language you don't understand. That means you do not understand the terms of the contract. That's if the contract is even there. Because for most people, you just fill in a form and there's no contract for you to sign to know how much money are you going to earn at the end of it all? How much, what are the benefits you're going to get? And how long is your contract? And what does it say in relation to termination? What rights do you have in this relationship of employment that you're going for? It is never there. And a very, very clear way of you identifying that you're being trafficked, to which I think people should always understand, is once they tell you that your past, okay, they might not tell you, but you can look at the way people are behaving. If there is no one regulating the other side where you're going. You don't have a contact person on where you should go in case of any dispute, or then that most chances, 90% is a trafficking. It is not you going to work. And why am I saying this? Because working with the young women that have gone to the Middle East, and upon reaching there, they realize it is actually trafficking and not them going for work, is the fact that their properties are always taken away from them, the phones, the passports. So if you're my employer, why would you hold me and hold my passport? Why would you give me terms that are inhuman? You cannot tell me, just like the lady who was speaking, who was trafficked. I'm really sorry that that happened to you, and I'm glad you're alive, because so many people do not survive that. Yes. So when you're not eating, when you're working for more than 8 hours a day, that is not the ILO standard, of work. You are supposed to work. If the laws are not in any way compatible to the laws of your country, then you should be very cautious. You should understand this might end up as trafficking or you being enslaved, and not really employment. I'm not saying that all companies that take people up in the Middle East are participating in trafficking, because I know of so many genuine companies where the company will hold your passport for you so that maybe your employer does not take, and you have an agent at the company that has taken you that can follow up, come and check up on you. So that is employment. But when there is no one to do the follow up, and when it's not a genuine company, always find out whether this company that's taking me to work abroad is registered under the laws of your country. And is it genuine registration? Do background check. That's one thing I always tell people, so that you don't fall victim. I know it's not easy. Most times we're excited because of the situation back home, and you're getting an opportunity to go and work. And trust me, the fee is always attractive. In Uganda, it's like 2 million a month. You are a woman who has not probably earned 2 million your whole life. You really get excited. And the fact that you're going abroad is also something to be excited about. So we shouldn't be too excited. I normally call it village excitement. We shouldn't be that excited. Let's be vigilant and do a background check on the companies. Yes.
Okay. So quick run through on how to identify this is human trafficking, and how to know the difference between a real job and human trafficking is: one, there needs to be a contract,
definitely,
a clear contract that is in a language you can understand. Yeah.
Yes.
Two, there needs to be contact on the other side. Wherever you're going, you need to have a contact person there.
Yes.
Three, there needs to be an agent in your home country and in the other country you're going to, who is in quote unquote in charge of you. So even if they keep your passport for you, you know that they're doing it in your best interest. Yeah.
Definitely.
Laws, you need to check on the laws of the country you're traveling to and the laws of the country you already exist in, and just compare if these two are compatible. And if they're not compatible, then you can ask some questions. Yeah.
Definitely.
And also the knowing that not all companies are going to be trafficking people, but you have to do a background check on all the companies. Make sure that they're registered, make sure that they have been in existence for a long time, make sure that there's comments and people saying they have, experienced it and come back home and things like that, right?
Definitely.
Thank you, Naima. So what are the types of human trafficking? We know the bit where someone travels to look for work, but there are other types of human trafficking, and what do they look like? Patience, would you please jump in and educate us on this? Patience?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Should I repeat the question?
Okay, you can just do. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. What are the other kinds of human trafficking, and how do we identify them?
I would say there are two common types or three, if I may call it that way. I'm not that expert here, but I'm going to try my best to explain the best I can. Besides going for labor, there is also sex exploitation, where I did mention about those who do that sex work, and also even other people who do sex work. So there's also where people traffic you for commercial purposes, not labor and sex exploitation, but sometimes they want some some parts of your body to be sold.
Okay, that's organ trafficking or just okay.
They traffic humans. They traffic humans, but also for those purposes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but mostly we have the labor and then the sexual exploitation, and sometimes it's going to work, but you're also you're sexually abused at the end. So sometimes it's hard to identify what trafficking they're really taking you for, but it's usually they're always the main thing that to even go to where they're going. It's mostly labor, because each and every person needs to work, and they need where someone tells you that I have a job, I'm going to be paying you a certain amount of money that you never dreamed of even going to be working for, then that's where they take an advantage of you, and whatever you might work, but then you're sexually abused. You're mainly sexually abused. So it's a bit tricky to identify. This is what mostly they pull out your interests, what you're really in need of. So I don't know if
yes,
I would say those are the common human trafficking types I would mention.
Yeah, you have answered my question very well, thank you. I mean, so in
Sorry, I've lost you. I don't know if it's only me.
Joy, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so other than human trafficking, other than labor trafficking, this trafficking might be combined, right? You might get there and then it turns into sex trafficking, it turns into organ trafficking, and if someone is not of the age of consent or above, say 18 in the case of Kenya, that is also child trafficking.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Patience. You have really highlighted the types. I felt like it was important for us to distinguish the types, or to familiarize ourselves with the types, so that even as we get into a topic that is talked about, we have enough knowledge and information about these conversations. Yeah. So why is it that women are the most targeted group when it comes to trafficking? And I guess it's women and men, but why is it that women are the most trafficked group? And number two, if men are also trafficked, how comes there's little to no like media showcasing on that? Because there isn't a lot of appearance in the media of men who have gone to work and the working conditions are not what they envisioned them to be like and had to come back home. So just to reiterate, number one, why is it that women are the most affected by human trafficking? And number two, I have forgotten, but if you can remember my two questions. please, Judie, if you're in a position to help us answer this.
Yeah.
So why women, and why are men not really highlighted when it comes to trafficking?
Yes. Somebody here rightfully said, according to statistics, women are more vulnerable. Let's, for example, take the period of the pandemic. During the pandemic, even when we look at issues of GBV, again, women were the majority, and the majority because in our community, you can imagine for the longest time, it's a cultural issue and all that, and their industry is what was most affected, because at the beginning, I remember doing a story about girls looking for jobs, along the streets. In Kenya, we call them Mama Safi. So these are women you can go and hire for a day to come and clean your house, clean your clothes. These were the first casualties to lose their jobs because of COVID-19. Everybody was afraid to have someone who comes to the house and leaves. You can imagine, majority of for example, the livelihoods are lower class, meaning that most of them work as house helps, as cleaners. Basically, that was the first industry to be affected. In the hotels, as the cleaners, the chefs and all that. So basically when COVID struck, the majority to be affected were the women. They were the first casualties to lose their jobs. Even though men also lost their jobs, actually the ratio of women to the men cannot be compared at all. And then because of some of the reasons why women, keep on hoping, there's a lot of pressure. They have kids. When you look at even where some of them are even the breadwinners of the family, and there's a lot of pressure for them to continue providing. So because of their vulnerability, poverty, joblessness, and all that desperation. And when you're vulnerable, basically anything can happen to you, because I've spoken to so many women during this time of COVID. In fact, some stories are not even for publishing, but it's just for me to understand why they keep going to the Middle East, despite them hearing these sad stories. I kept on wondering, but why did you go? Have you ever heard of a story where a woman went to the Middle East, they suffered? They said they had, but also they have had stories of the lucky ones who went and got very good jobs and they're earning properly. And then now in the media, men are always not wanting to talk a lot of times, because the men always feel like they're always supposed to be strong. So they're not really willing to come out and speak. The last time when I was doing the story of Ugandan girls, out of these 120 girls that I had access to, there were 2 men. The 2 men were like maybe around, one was 17 and the other one I think was around 16, but they didn't want to talk. So again, they don't talk because of stigma, discrimination, and that thing of why you're a man, why are you crying? So still, yes, the number of men is very low compared to the number of women who are affected when it comes to human trafficking. When you look at the types, like sex trafficking, the labor exploitation. So a lot of times the home jobs who are hired, it's still the women, because again, there's a cultural attachment to that. Because when you grow up, our place is in the kitchen, and you can see this bringing up still goes way after even we are a modern society, because most of them are going to work as house helps in people's houses. What happens when they get there? It's modern day slavery, where basically I bought you are like my slave. So I can do anything that I want with you. I can abuse you sexually. I can physically assault you. I can assault you emotionally. I can overwork you. So basically, that thing of still looking down upon the woman has really contributed to further making the women to suffer. But I think it's a matter of us trying to balance the story. Because again, I asked myself, when I decided I'm not going to highlight so much about what that, because I've been doing so many cases of, they were tortured, the unfriendly working hours, the contract that they sign in a language that they don't understand. And so I think if we can do a lot of still awareness and training for our journalists to try to tell the story in a complete way, and also objectivity. For example, we can balance voices, the ones who are doing well, the ones that are not doing well. And the ones who are doing well, probably they can tell others what they ensured they put in place, what did they observe to ensure this didn't happen. So as the media, we still have a lot of work to do. I don't think we've done enough. I think we have to really do a lot, like in terms of even pushing for the rescue of the women who are stranded in Lebanon and in Saudi Arabia. I don't think we've really done it in the right way. Maybe we have to change our strategy, that we demand like the way we did for Wanja. Wanja, I'm happy among the people who are working so hard for your comeback. I got in touch with one of your friends. She's one of the people that has projects with GI Talk. So we went like to a different organization to ask that Wanja's help to come back. And so many cases of so many people that we've gone to negotiate. So sometimes it even gets to a point where as a journalist, you even abandon your own role of being a journalist to try and fix the situation, to try and get somebody help. So I think that is the best thing that we can do. We need to balance the stories. We need to be issue-based and solution-oriented. We've got to go beyond that, so that we ensure no other woman that goes through this. Telling the story is reactionary. Telling the story of Wanja suffering is reactionary. In the first place, our reporting should have been to prevent the harm from happening, because Wanja is lucky to be alive, but we have some that we've buried. We have some women brought in coffins and they're buried. So what then do we do as media and together with the CSO to focus on prevention as opposed to reactionary when someone is emotionally suffering, somebody is dead? So yes, I think that is what it is, but the men are not really as affected, because if you look at what men go to do there, their jobs are more manual. And I think just because they are men, there's more respect for them compared to the women. The women, I think our cultural treatment of a woman, the patriarchal society, all those stereotyping still contribute to further violating the rights of women that are going there. So I hope even after this meeting, we can be able to come together and see how we can be able to address, even if it's having well-coordinated media reporting across our countries, we need to think of the way forward. And I'll be more than happy to use the expertise that I have as a journalist and a media trainer as well, to ensure that we amplify the voice, to ensure the government corrects what they ought to correct, because it's not only Kenyans who are suffering in the Middle East. I was in Uganda in, I think, March, and I saw hundreds of girls lining up to go to Saudi. I couldn't hold back feeling sorry for them, because I saw them being mistreated at the airport. The agent was shouting at them and she had their travel documents. And I was like, what do I do? And there's nothing I could do at that particular moment. So what do we do together? We need a coordinated approach to ensure that we prevent these things. And we try to say that women too have their rights, because I hope you can see the point why men are not usually majority of the victims compared to the women.
Yes.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you so much, Judie. Thank you for that. You really have educated us on that one. Other than just the lack of media focusing on stories by men and the already existing conditions that hinder women's growth globally, the patriarchal system, misogynic systems, those systems are in place in all societies, and these are the same things that are facing women who travel to look for work. So a woman's place is in the kitchen. That is where they will be treated as, okay, it is not why, it is not a good reason. It is not a reason why, but it is part of what makes them more vulnerable. So thank you for that. I want to plug in Patience to talk to us about her work with sex workers, because we have talked about the vulnerability and how that by itself makes persons get trafficked. Economic vulnerability is one thing. Now, economic vulnerability plus working in an industry that is unconventional. So right before I invite Patience, Joyce from G-Talk had to leave. She says, thank you people for an interesting discussion. Sorry, I have to drop the call to attend to something. Please feel free to contact Judie or I on matters regarding the Resilience Fund or the G-Talk. My email address is joyce.kimani@globalinitiative.net, and enjoy the rest of your day. So I think this message will also be put out to guys in the socials, I suppose. But thank you, Joyce. Now, Patience, talk to me about what it is like for women who are in the sex industry already, and how likely are they to be trafficked? What happens when they are trafficked? What are the implications of this? And what does it look like working in that field?
Thank you for the question. are most of the times reasons to why these people who do sex working. So most of the times, oh, sorry, you will allow me not to put on my video because I get interrupted. So if you allow me, I can use the audio for now.
It's okay. It's totally fine. Understandable. In your case.
Thank you so much. So I was talking of most of the times these of a couple of reasons. One, it's their economic status. Illiterates, they have no any other skill, and most they live in a violated environment mostly. Is because they're abandoned by their families, because given the target groups we work with, it includes teenage mothers, and most of the times you find that if a young girl gives birth at an age of 13 and she's pushed away by her family, which should be catering and helping that girl to get back on her feet, then the only thing she's left with is to dropping out of school, because those who have to pay for her, they're no longer going to be paying for her. And another giving birth to. And remember, she's a teenager. When it comes to, that's when they start being more active and all that. So you find that catered for. So sometimes, apparently, which is most of the times, they find come up to them, giving what they want, they're going to accept it. Or everything they want, they're going to build a close relationship with that person. That person might be doing it for good, and most of the time it's not, because they're the ones who impregnate them for the second time, and they're the ones who even traffic them to or sell them to other people for other purposes of sexual exploitation, or which is forced labor. So when it comes to these sex workers, they do it not because they really want to. Yes, they really they do it willingly, but it's not they really want to do it. It's because the situation they're in. And whenever like for example, where we work around HIV prevention, you find that someone is infected. They know that person, however, they're going to sleep with is infected, but they're going to accept it because they have no any other choice.
Yeah.
If he misses that chance, that means that's missing a chance of surviving or is even feeding the kids. So they're in a situation where whoever is going to offer them a job under the name of a job to be taken elsewhere for better payment or even a stable payment, because we're looking at they don't have the payment they have is literally close to nothing, which is not even stable. They get it today and tomorrow they're not going to get it. If someone is going to even offer the same amount, which is stable, rate. So these are the people who are not also going to be able to read a contract, whatever language you're going to put it. So these are the people who are not going to ask who is the contact person. These are the people who will know. These are the procedures of traveling, because whatever they're going to offer them on the table, that's what she will take. Option, because number one, most of the times you even find that these who do female sex work, they're even married, but she's living in in a home which is regulated. That's one. She has to cater for those kids, and also there's nothing she can do besides selling herbal. Because I would say, however much it might not sound right, but that's the only investment. That's the investment she will have without extra investment.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, but logically, it's more of than any other investment. So you find that that person not knowing how to read, not knowing how to write, that person will not even think of the contact person to contact whenever there is a problem. That person is the person who is going to be able to take anything that is going to be put on the table for a job. And that's where they're taken and they're going to be exploited in any way possible, either or even that's sex exploitation. Maybe if I'm not taking a lot of time, I would share a little bit of one of the because she was a teenage mother, and by the time she gave birth, she was pushed out by her family. She tried she dropped out of school, and by the time she was looking for where any work, any domestic work that she help her earn some money to cater for herself and the child. She had to meet a man what she wanted. That's the well-being of herself and the child. So it's where as going to be doing the domestic work that she really wanted and to be paid it for, but she ended up being a sort of a wife. She was sexually abused because it was not out of consent. And number one, and another thing, she was the minor. And after that, he impregnated her twice.
Oh wow.
Her out of the house. And later, the man who impregnated her to send her to Uganda. That's why she will get a better job and for the kids to be catered for. And it is until she met from Rwanda that helped her come back from Uganda to Rwanda. That was terrible. It started from a small thing, getting pregnant, then from there getting pushed to that point. And sometimes you find that it's not because of literally, sometimes we are the causes, because we don't prevent instead of reaching. This is a role played by our parents, all the families that people come from, all the, because they're the ones, they see all that happening from the starting point up to when someone becomes a victim. Yeah, so and these people are in a very vulnerable situation, if I may say.
So we also need to look at ourselves as a society and as a community, no matter which country we come from, and see how we might have contributed to someone going into sex work or getting exploited because we were not tolerant. Yeah. Patients are doing such tremendous work. Thank you. And I just want to pick up from what you've talked about vulnerable persons, which is the angle that I think Mike will continue with in the next. We've done this like in two halves, so in the next half. But there are two questions that came from Facebook that I'd like to read out. And they're in regards to vulnerable persons, and I think our implications as a society. So let me just find that and read that out. Questions from Facebook. Number one, how do we make sure to successfully engage faith-based organizations since they have more influence in our communities, and are they even engaged? That's the first question. And number two, how do we analyze the reporting of human trafficking in developing countries? Is it fair to the victims? So the first question I will ask Naima to answer, and the second one I will ask Judie to answer. Is that
Thank
okay?
you very much. So just to be clear, I think my question is how we can involve the faith-based organizations since they are the biggest supporters of communities. Okay, let me switch on my video. I think someone said we should switch on our videos. Okay.
You look so nice. Why was it turned off?
Thank you. So there's one thing we need to understand is when it comes to patriarchy and defenders of patriarchy, religion and culture are the biggest defenders of patriarchy. Why? Because we put women in a place that they feel they are not worthy of being something of value to the community. And if you look at faith-based organizations that live by the virtues and values of a certain religion, chances are they will not be able to support a certain, in quotes, category of people that are vulnerable per se. What do I mean? If we look at sex workers, what does the church talk about a woman that is not virtuous? They're supposed to be not welcomed in a society or a community, or they're not looked at as women of value or worthy of even being respected at marriage. Yeah. If a child got pregnant earlier, the community will label them in a certain way, and they feel vulnerable and discarded from the community. So yes, as a feminist lawyer and a women's rights organization, we try as much to engage the faith-based organizations to look beyond what they think a religion or their faith makes them believe to perceive women. It's high time as a community and individuals, we stop having that sense of importance as a person. Because I veil myself, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, that's my thing. Because I do not veil the way Islam says I should veil, then I am discarded off as not Muslim enough. Yeah, because I do not wear a certain dress code, I am discarded or looked at as not Muslim enough. So how will I embrace what you want me to embrace? If you're not being kind to me, understanding why it is that I'm not veiling, probably I do not have the veils or I cannot afford to buy them. Muslim dresses are expensive, probably I cannot afford to buy them. And you're quick to judge and look at me like I'm not worthy of being Muslim. I'm a Christian woman, and just because I don't have choice, but decided to be a sex worker because that is where I find my sense of peace. We tend to look at people as, she is going to spoil my children, she's going to spoil the reputation of the family, you know? So how do we move away from judging, criticizing, and feeling a sense of self-importance and entitled just because you think you're better than? And the irony behind this is women are the first people to point fingers and abuse fellow women. It's really ironic. Instead of, there's an article I read about the African lesso, lend a lesso to a sister. That means support a sister, protect her, ensure that whatever she's going through, she's a fellow woman, be in her shoes and try to understand where she comes from and where she is. Some people are who they are because community made them be that, or the society made them be that. Some people are who they are because they do not know better. They don't have that, they don't have the knowledge, or they have not been blessed enough as you are to understand a certain way of what a community or person who lives in a community is. Yeah. So faith-based organizations need to move away from the traditional belief of what their faith is, because I believe, yes, there is faith, but there is what they call an analogical deduction of you as an individual, and there is Ubuntu as a person. What are you doing as an individual? Before we even go to the faith-based organization, what are you doing as Joy? What have you done to affect the woman next to you? Are you supporting or are you quick to judge?
Thank you. Thank you for calling us out as a society and the institutions as well. And I think I saw Patience jumping in and saying something with regards to faith-based organization and why it's a bit hard for them to work well together. Patience, did you want to add something?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Oh, she was saying that they're stigmatized and discriminated against. Yes, we agree they are. Because women think, yes, because I am married, I am better in a society, community than a girl who is single. That is patriarchy speaking, and that's society making you speak that way. You as a woman, if I am single or you're married, nothing makes us different. We are women and we need to support each other and ensure that the vulnerability does not be created by us as women, because you're discriminating me. I'm single, I'm not married, I am not woman enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not wife material. All that is, for lack of a better word, nonsensical in a society. And it's these things that make women vulnerable. If you look at statistics of women going abroad to work, these are women who probably dropped out of school because of certain reasons. They did not get the opportunity to be educated the way you are as an individual. They did not get the opportunity to be exposed to certain things in life. These are women who lost parents and relatives and probably are refugees, and they have no option other than give themselves into trafficking with hope of a better, better pay and life. So before we make women, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about women mostly because that's my area of expertise. Before we are ready to say, why did you go? Let us look at what made her decide
to leave
trafficking to be the last resort, and how can we make it better so that the women who are vulnerable do not have a choice to decide to be trafficked as a last resort. Are we giving them better pays? Are we taking care of our maids? Like we say, the house helps and house managers. Are we giving them the pay they deserve? Is that pay enough for them to take care of their children and their families? Yeah, the people that we're working with, bosses in organizations, is a woman who's a manager and a man who's a manager being given same pay, or you are discriminating because of gender? Yeah, so that is not done. Then women are going to continue being vulnerable, and they will have no option other than decide to go and work abroad under the disguise of being employed abroad, but in actual sense, it's trafficking.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I beg to stop here.
No, it's fine. Thank you for talking about institutions and what are we doing as individuals, and tying that in with, I mean, what Patience also talked about, the need to support each other in the society, for to ask ourselves as a society, what role have we played in trafficking of persons? So thank you. Judie, you need to leave. I'm so sorry. So my question to you, Judie, was the second one. And it was, how do we analyze the reporting of human trafficking in developing countries? And is it fair to the victims? And then after that, I will let you go. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's okay. One of the things that I say as a journalist, I don't want to take glory or pride when I know I've done harm to any person, to any child, to any woman, or to any man. So basically, the first role should be to protect the victims, to protect the survivors, to give them the dignity that they deserve, such that if, like, for example, let's say Wanja is not ready, her images to be all over the place, to be told she's the one who was trafficked, because Wanja has a family, Wanja has a whole future ahead of her. And so we have to be sensitive to the feelings, the experiences, the nasty journey that the victims have been through, appreciate, acknowledge, and try to give them a cover up, trying to protect them rather than even exposing them further. Because yes, for the time being, someone is very vulnerable. When you're desperate, you're ready to do anything because you are desperate. You're so vulnerable. You feel like anybody who wants to help you, they have to help you. So as journalists, we really have to take our time, sit down and put ourselves in the shoes of the victim just to understand, if I am in my senses, am I really ready for my story to go all over with my images and my video? I have, for example, kids in school. What if everybody says her mother was trafficked, her mother was sexually abused in Saudi Arabia, her mother was, So we have to pay attention to the sensitivities around reporting on people who have gone through a nasty experience. We have to understand sometimes they are vulnerable. They don't understand whether they should go public or they should not go public. So it is my role as a journalist to try and also advise them at the same time, because it does no good for me. I do a big story, it looks like a big story, but I've spoiled the future of somebody. And this is the kind of passion, this is the kind of commitment that we need to train the younger journalists. And that's why I'm saying I feel like there's a huge gap in terms of ensuring that journalists are not happy with those sensational images. Sometimes I've watched reports and I've actually wondered what is the essence of showing faces of the girls crying and screaming. Some of the images to date are in my mind, and I ask, what is the benefit of exposing these children? These children are below 18. They have a whole future ahead of them. Even though they need help, and even though I feel great, I've gotten the story, breaking story, I have the best images, I have the best interviews. I don't think it is right for us to be insensitive to their lives, whether they know it or they don't know. It's our duty as journalists to be very responsible in everything that we do. And that's why I'm insisting on, we need a lot of training for our journalists. And the training, that it's also about going beyond reactionary, going beyond just celebrating by putting the emotional part of it. It's for us to go deeper and cover the issues and cover the gaps, because even if we critique how things are done, it's not just critiquing for the sake of it. It doesn't mean to make anybody look bad. We are criticizing because we want things improved. We are criticizing because we want to uncover issues that are not covered well. And I think civil society organizations, whether NGOs, government bodies, they have a role to play to work, collaborate with the media. We empower the younger ones with skills, and because one of the things, Joy, I must tell you, when I said I was writing stories on human trafficking, somebody asked me, those are not even sexy stories. They're so boring. You'll never get likes. No one likes these stories. They are hard to sell. But as I went on writing, and of course, feeling my stories were not good enough for the media house, they started telling me, actually, we've realized a new following on the stories that you do. And these are the kind of audiences that we never had. Meaning that we have information gaps, which we can fill through the reporting on human trafficking. And reporting on human trafficking from an informed perspective. And this informed perspective can only come from civil society organizations, from the UN bodies, from all these NGOs that are dealing with human trafficking. And that's why at GI Talk, there's a lot of emphasis on impact. There's a lot of emphasis also on empowering journalists. And you can see without that empowerment that I got from GI Talk, I don't think I'll be talking like this today. Probably I'll be among those journalists bringing those images that are really, really quite touching and impressive. So it helps a lot to continue empowering them. And the media is really changing. A lot of younger people are coming. We have people where you are hiring someone, you feel like I should be the mother to this child. So these people even do not have the institutional memory. They don't have the history, they don't have the context. And this is why continuous engagement with the media has to continue. And if possible, we can even have a focus where we can train them, go through the scripts, pay attention to the sensitivities that we are talking about, not exposing the victims in bad limelight, and even follow up to demand for accountability. For example, Wanja is back here, but the agent that took her there, I am sure is still operating. So as the media, how do we come to demand for accountability? Because if we don't demand for accountability, another agent will be encouraged to continue doing the same. So that's why stories from the Middle East keep on coming, because there's no accountability. And that is where the role of the media comes into this. So I hope I've answered that, and only the training that will help us to be sensitive to the victims, be sensitive to the interviews we are using, the images that we are using. Thank you so much, Joy. I'm sorry that I have to step out. I had another meeting which I was to join earlier, but this was quite interesting. I really wanted to stay on. I look forward to where we can have the forum again. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
I really had one question. I had one question to ask Judy, but unfortunately she's leaving. But okay, before you leave, I would like to know, how did you engage Kenyan government organs and institutions to assist in the case of Patricia Wanja, because as you told us, you were very active in advocating for Patricia Wanja to come back home. So I really wanted how to engage the government organs so that they assist you. And I was discussing this question with Joy. So if one happened to find himself or herself in the situation of human trafficking, what are the do's and don'ts? Maybe this question could have been answered by Wanja because she experienced this, but I think you have something to say about this as well. Okay, thank you. These were my questions to you.
Yeah, actually, I can tell you sometimes accessing information from the government is very difficult. They only look for you when they want you to send out information. So actually, Joyce Kimani and another colleague came. They told me about the case of Wanja. We were just chatting and they reached out to me. They said, oh, because we write stories on human trafficking, probably you know how Wanja can get help. So we went to see a local CSO here. It's called Counter Human Trafficking East Africa. That's Chitea. We went, we saw the director, we explained the director the case of Wanja. Chitea is very well connected. These NGOs and CSOs that are dealing with human trafficking have more connections than, for example, me as a journalist. And so Chitea was able to reach out to another organization and then the Foreign Affairs Ministry. There was a lot of coordination that was done, but I can tell you Wanja's case took a very long time because there's no straight way of getting the help. But one thing I also want to recommend Wanja for is her resilience. You know, it's her deciding I have to go public. Sometimes you have to do that for you to get help because there are very many other girls trapped there and all of them want to get help. So if we don't know what's happening, then we can't be able to help. So Wanja was very active. She decided to go public about it because really she needed that publicity. And that's where the hashtag was started and we were able to come together, the CSOs and all that. The noise was so loud that the government had to intervene. They had to pass in this case because everybody was on their case. So even going to the social media, and because sometimes even in a media organization, you can't always report the story of one person. You cannot always start the news with Wanja is still stranded in the Middle East. So even as we can decide, we come up with hashtags. Even if we come up with a hashtag, let's say, to change the policy of that kafara system, because that is where the problem is, then we can decide a whole day we do it on Twitter or whatever, we tag everybody, we make all the noise until we see this change is done. So writing is not enough, but I think it's writing, following, and combined with advocacy. And this cannot be done by one person. That's why we have to come together. So Mike, I think there's no straight way of getting anybody help. The only way is going round and round in circles, and it will take long. Wanja can tell you she was there for quite some time, even when she called for help. I think it took quite several months before Wanja was able to come. I hope I've given you some tips that maybe you could apply in what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for clarification. This is very helpful. So Joy, you can continue.
Yes, Mike.
It's okay now.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you. It has been a pleasure hosting you. You have
Thank
been
you so
very
much. I look forward to engaging with you again. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
So at this juncture, I would like to invite Janvier. Is he here? Janvier.
Maybe before
Okay. So I don't think Janvier is here. So I think Mike, you can jump right in.
Yeah, I was saying before Janvier came in, we can talk about kafara system, because Judie Kaberia was talking about kafara system. Maybe there are some people here who don't know kafara system. So the kafara system is a kind of, I mean, it's an Arabic word that means the sponsorship. It's a system that defines a relationship between foreign workers and their local sponsor or kafir. So it means that if the kafara system is a system that puts a worker at the mercy of his boss. So it's very, very common in the Gulf Cooperation Council. I mean, GCC countries like in Bahrain, Kuwait, Lebanon, Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Arab Emirates. Normally, the kafara system was set up by these countries as a system to monitor migrant workers, especially those working in domestic sectors and in the construction. So I think you are now aware about the kafara system, but for clarification, the kafara system is taken or criticized as being a modern slavery system that put foreign workers at the danger or in the danger, especially those working in the domestic houses in those countries that I mentioned. So Joy, I think I'm done. You can now invite Janvier again to present the poem, and then we'll continue.
All right. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for educating us on the kafara system. And I do not think that Janvier is here, unless he's here. Janvier, are you here? Okay, so I don't think he's here. So Mike, I think you just jump right in because you had already, I mean, you started off at a good note already. So just, yeah.
Okay, but it's okay. So okay. And for clarification, some of our attendees have heard Judie Kaberia and Wanja Patricia talking about employers confiscating workers' passport, and which is forcing them to work excessive hours and denying them wages. So this kafara system is a system that must be stopped. I've seen different rights groups saying that the system makes workers, particularly those working in construction, vulnerable to abuse by their employers. So, and I've seen a big campaign, and most of us have had European countries trying to boycott Qatar World Cup participation, and which was a way of putting pressure on Qatar government to stop the kafara system, and the Qatar system and Qatar government has made some changes in the kafara system, as well as Saudi Arabia. They say they are making some changes in the kafara systems, where currently, like in Saudi Arabia, authorities say that workers will now be able to switch jobs without employer's permission, which is now good, and they will be able to hold or to keep their passport, which is different to the previous experiences where bosses were confiscating passport of workers. So now, my question now, I have a question to Patricia. I mean, no. Yes, Patricia. Patricia, are you around? Hello, Patricia. Is Patricia around? Hello? Hello? Okay, if Patricia is not...
or Patience?
Is it Patricia or Patience? Okay. Patience. Okay, let me now take Rwanda name. Iribagiza.
Oh yeah, it's Patience.
Okay, Patience. It's Patience, not Patricia. Okay. I confused your name to Patricia Wanja. Okay, so I've seen, I mean, different reports have shown that traffickers exploit mostly children and young adults. Some of them are from secondary school students between the ages of 13 to 18. Most of them go to commercial sex in hotels, as you mentioned, just as a way of looking for money. But I have a question, like in your organization and on your behalf, what could be the role of young people in prevention of human trafficking? Because you see, most of them are the targets, but on the other side, I want to know what could be their role in the prevention of this human trafficking virus.
Oh, thanks, Mike, for the question. Apparently, it's a great question since we are also youth.
Mm-hmm.
A big role in this situation, because most of the times it's, as you've mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and which I would say for the case of Rwanda, I don't well aware, or this is something that we usually talk. It's not part of the most topics that we talk about, and which is one of the reasons this issue with the youth. And another thing we should awareness, we teach our fellow youth to know more about it, and mostly the most human trafficking and youth, it does not only affect the most vulnerable ones. We are always looking for what to do. We're always, running out, what can I be able to do to improve the well-being of myself and my at home. So we are at the forefront in fighting human trafficking. So we should raise awareness more in this country and even at the globe. And also we should play a big role, because someone is, before even that young girl tells the parent, the one who is going to first know that she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be fellow youth, besides getting to know, besides teaching them. Yes, we teach, but it doesn't mean that whoever you're going to teach is going to take home, be an eye of our fellow youth. So I would say those are the main things, and we should.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I think, and thank you for your insights about this question. And I think Janvier is now around. Janvier Masisi, can you hear me, Janvier?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you?
Okay, now you're welcome. Welcome on the panel. So we are now going to give you 3 minutes to 5 minutes for your wonderful poem. As I said during the introduction, Janvier Masisi is an artist and is a global poet living in Rwanda. Janvier, welcome, and it's your time for we are ready to hear from you. Hello, Janvier. I think you can unmute your microphone.
Is everybody hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I've been late because for the inconvenience message. Okay. The poem is called "My Home Does Not Care About Me." I'm hurt all the time, and I don't want to cry for the way I feel inside. So I just want someone to hold me. I'm around him, but can anyone find me? Because my home does not care about me. But you know why I cry? When I wake up in the morning, I make sure I stand alongside my bedroom window. I see my neighbors running so fast to a job, and I wonder why not me, but I get no answer. So refugees are people like others, they have ability, but no opportunity. So no one leaves home, and race home is the most of shock. You don't leave home when neighbors won't let you stay. You don't leave home when panga and your neck, gun and your feet, that extent you forget your home. No one chose to live in the bushes unless the bush is more safer than a house. I've seen people die like a flies. I've seen blood flows in the valley like a river, and this makes me question myself, where do blood flies of the last sky? Where the refugees goes at the last border? And why, and why, and why, and why? So I've heard some people say that east to west home is a beast, and now live to lament east to west home is a war. Say, I wake up with nothing but to play the sun, the light in my favor. Come to the street to live for hope that one day God will bring our dreams like a manna from the heaven. We just want to be okay. When I say I want to be okay, I don't mean graduate in 4 years, get job, get married. When I say I want to be okay, I just mean good health, just like you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Janvier, for a wonderful poem. I was asking if you can please turn on your video.
Can you see me?
No. Let me try to see. Maybe, no, I can't see you, but you can try again and open your camera. I just want to ask you one question as an artist, because artist plays big role. It's a kind of question that I ask to patients, but in another way. What could be the role of artists like you, musicians, poets, and yeah, movie actors in the prevention and in the fight against human trafficking?
Okay. As we know, there is no limitation of an artist. We write what we think and we expose it to the world. So I think trafficking, human trafficking is a big issue that is around the world. So as an artist, we need to write, we need to compose something against human trafficking and publish it to the world, like tell the world that human trafficking is it's a barrier to the youth development. It's a barrier to the human being. So as an artist, it's our duty to put human trafficking not in everything is right, but we just have to make it special. We have to take our time and think about it, because it's a news everywhere. We see it every day on the TV. We see it every day in social media, every day in newspapers. So I think it's a barrier for us, more especially youth, and we are among the youth. So my idea is, let's just in our poems, in our songs, in every art, let's include human trafficking so that we share to the world, and the world will benefit from us. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Janvier. Thank you for your ideas and for the great poem. I am now moving forward to ask a question to Naima Isa. Naima, are you around? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Naima. So I really appreciated your ideas and takes on some questions about human trafficking situation in East Africa, but I would like to ask you, I think you are a journalist that, a journalist, and you work for an organization that deals with human trafficking and human rights and stuff in Uganda mostly. So are there policies or real policies governing human trafficking in East Africa? If we have them, are they effective? Or maybe you can tell us about the experience of Uganda, so that maybe we can see if in other countries they do have those policies.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike, for the question. I'll just clear this. I'm not a journalist. I am a human rights lawyer, a feminist
okay.
lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, so
okay. Yeah, feminist lawyer. Thank you.
So the question you're asking me is whether there are policies in relation to trafficking. Well, if you look at statistics and demographics, you'll find that the East African region per se, we do not have, actually, we are the most people trafficking our citizens out of the country. And I think this came about due to the fact that we signed our government signed memorandums of understanding with the foreign ministries of the Middle East country. And because of so many government memorandums of understanding, exchange of labor was also considered as one of the things we would exchange with the countries per se. But the challenge that this came up with when they signed the MOUs and agreed to export labor, in Uganda, we had a labor exportation act law that was created, guiding or giving specifications on how to export labor, which companies to be included in exporting labor and all that. But now the funny or the irony behind this is there was not a regulation made to govern the law, because usually when an act comes up, there must be a regulation to give specifications on who is in charge of what or what should be done and how can it be effected in case there is a breach. So this was never done. And so this was a hiccup that left leeway for labor exporting companies to abuse the law or circumvent the law in a way where they would not be held liable. And so when the country realized that this was being done, amendments were made to ensure that they curb the vice from where it is and also be able to identify companies that are not, that are considered trafficking in nature, are not kind of exporting labor. So every day that goes by, every year that goes by, we see companies their licenses being revoked because they have breached a certain provision of the law. So whether there are policies in Uganda, as far as I know, that is the law per se. Do we have a specific law targeting trafficking? That hasn't been done yet. And as a country or as an organization that I work with as FIDA, today and the other days that have come by, we are trying as much as possible to make recommendations, because that's one of our mandates, to antagonize and revise laws and policies that have to impact on the women's rights and the lives of women per se. So we have been making recommendations to the government through the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. That's the government, the arm of the government that we really work with as FIDA. And we have been urging the government to finalize and approve the formal national mechanism to systematically identify and refer trafficking victims to appropriate care. So for us as a country, trafficking does not apply only in the externalization of labor, but rather we do have domestic trafficking that is becoming rampant in the country. And this is, we are having children being trafficked from Karamoja and brought to Kampala. We never had street kids, in Kampala per se. So when this vice started, we realized a very abnormal surge of, street children from Karamoja. And initially people thought, oh, our poor looking people, they are not that, what should I say, for the lack of a better word, they are not that modernized. They are kind of backwards. So even the way they're dressing, their traditional dressing, you could identify this as a Karamoja child. So when there was a campaign that was done, FIDA Uganda was part of, in relation to child sex exploitation and child trafficking, when we did a project in relation to tracking where these kids come from. So we kind of realized they have arms in the government, big people in the government who are part of the trafficking that you cannot really identify, or important people in the society that are part of it that you cannot identify. And so we have asked government to do this, and it is sad that the government is not doing anything outwardly about it, in as much as we keep urging the government to put up shelters that can protect these children who have been, being brought out from, who are survivors and victims of trafficking, have a shelter to protect them, have a wellness and mental support to them so that they can, but we don't have shelters that are being established by the government. They are being made, that these are NGO shelters, and some are even closing up because of funding, and they lack support, and the government hasn't done anything about this. So the policy per se outwardly is not there. If you look at the East African region, because we also did a project on the East African region, where we went and lobbied the East African Legislative Assembly to pass the bill on trafficking and gender-based violence. And trust me, since 2017 to date, we do not have an act governing or a policy governing the whole of East African region in relation to human trafficking, which is sad, because we think our policymakers, our governments should play the important role and be the forerunners to ensure that the citizens are protected from exploitation. And it is sad that we don't have that. However, I commend the very many coalitions.
Yeah, thank you very much for clarification. And
I was saying I'm getting
okay.
Yes,
I can hear you. Continue.
Thank you. So yes, we don't have an outright policy, but we commend the different coalitions that different CSOs and NGOs and international NGOs are doing to ensure that they are following up on traffickers and that children and girls and the youth that are being trafficked, and ensuring that they come back home. I remember my organization participated in recovering traffickers who are being smuggled into Nairobi to be flown out. At the time where there was strict rules on labor exploitation and where there's a ban of exporting labor to Middle East, and still some agencies and organizations would use, Kenya as a route for them to be exploited or exported out. So the challenge comes where, as a region, we do not have a policy that is unifying us, or that is one that we can rely on in relation to trafficking. And I think it's high time the government does something about it, and the East African community at large.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you have brought in a new and very important element of domestic trafficking, because most of times, I think this issue of domestic trafficking is forgotten. And so why do you think this domestic trafficking is most of the times forgotten? Because most of us, even in this event, we have talked about human trafficking, and mostly we're just focusing on these Arabic countries and people being thrown out of countries, of African countries. So let's go back to domestic trafficking. Why do you think most people forget about this?
Well, like the saying says that we are quick to point at others and forget that we have 4 fingers pointing at us. Yeah. So as a country and as individuals, we do not see what we are doing wrong. That is in human nature, unless you're really, really self-cautious with what you're doing. We tend to ignore what we are doing wrong and tend to elevate what others are doing wrong, and not knowing that charity begins at home. So if we look at the characteristics of trafficking and exploitation and slavery, there are elements that we should not ignore as individuals or as a country or as a society and a community. And this includes exploitation. Exploitation is a form of trafficking. Blackmail is also one thing that we should also not ignore, and emotional exploitation. So we should ask ourselves, why is it that we never think, unless we see videos of our people being mistreated? which I might say could be like 20%, because we're not sure if all of them are being mistreated. Not all of them are being mistreated, so it could be 20%. But back home, they're exploiting our domestic workers. They're blackmailing our domestic workers. They're not paying them enough to sustain them. If you go to your workplace, how much is a cleaner, your office cleaner earning? Is it really worthy, the work they're doing? Yeah. Are we blackmailing people at work? Are we exploiting people sexually at work? You know, telling them, if I don't have sex with you, you're not going to be promoted to this job. Are we doing that? And that is slavery. That is trafficking. If we put it in a better context, are we using someone? Are we exploiting someone's skills for us to gain more, and we're not paying them what is worthy? Are we overworking the people we are employing to do work for us? If all this is in affirmative, then you are taking part in domestic trafficking. Yeah. So as a government, what I would recommend is for us to have a minimum wage set, and saying, you know what, let's say the minimum wage in Kenyan shillings is, let's say 10,000 Kenyan shillings for domestic worker. So if you cannot afford that, do your domestic work. If you can't afford that, that's what they're worthy and paying them. So we kind of downplay trafficking at home because we think what we're doing is okay. This woman is not educated. She wants to wash my clothes and do domestic work. Okay, I'll pay her the most peanut amount of money I can get. But it's not right, because you're exploiting this person, and that is trafficking in a way. Unless we become self-cautious as a community, as a nation, and realize that whatever policies are in play are not favoring the people are being exploited because of the different policies we've not put in place, then we cannot do away with trafficking. It will go back to us saying charity begins at home. So if we can do this at home, it will even create opportunities for these women who are being, and men who are being forced to leave the country with the hope of getting, you know, better pay. They would be staying home. Imagine if a housemaid or a house manager is being paid 10,000 Kenyan shillings. That would be enough for a minimum wage. And I don't think she'll be tempted to be lured in by, you know, companies that are exporting labor to go and work abroad, where she cannot access her family, where she has no freedom, where the kafala system says she's at the mercy of her employers in Arabia. She wouldn't opt for that oppression, and she would rather stay home and earn her 10,000 shillings doing the same work, you know, back home. We always consider and think about what we're doing back home instead of pointing fingers to the exportation of labor. Is not.
That's thank you, Naima. So my next question goes to Mr. Wycliffe Aganda. Wycliffe, are you around? Hello, Wycliffe. Is Wycliffe around? I think we are left with a few minutes. That's why I wanted Wycliffe to jump in and tell us something about our last two questions before we conclude. But if someone else has a question, you are free to ask. And I've seen a wonderful comment from Patience Iribagiza saying that domestic servitude is taken as normal in our home countries. Yes, sir. Desmond Ogubi has been asking if, Janvier has already performed a very wonderful poem. So if Mr. Wycliffe is around, you can tell him to, okay, let me ask him to unmute. So my question, now, is Njeri and Njeri, are you around? Njeri Kimani, are you around? Do you have something to ask, or just something to say about what we discussed? Can you hear me? Njeri Kimani and Wycliffe Aganda? Okay, I can see that they are not around. Let me ask Joy to come back. Joy, are you around? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm here. I think
Okay.
of our we still have we have Patience who's still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Hashar has not come yet. Is not around yet.
Yes. But we have Naima and Patience who've been with us all through. So it is amazing that
Yeah.
they've stayed with us. So do you want to finish up with the last questions? With the two...
So my question was just maybe I'm asking to I just wanted to ask this question to Mr. Aganda because about this industry, but maybe Naima can also have a say on this because this is a multi-million-dollar business for big companies which are very influential. And I've seen some reports from the states, from the website of the United States government saying that corruption is also high in both businessmen and some of the government agents. So do you think, is it easy to eradicate this virus? So I must call it a virus because it's a multi-million-dollar business. So is it easy to eradicate it? How can we move forward to make sure that all these initiatives that are being taken will be effective? So Naima, you can have a say on this, and Wycliffe Aganda.
Okay. Sorry, just 1 second, Naima. I'm so sorry. Terribly sorry.
Okay.
just to put it out for guys who are joining us via the live stream. Hi, and also please leave your questions, drop your questions. Feel free to join into the conversation and welcome. Okay, Naima, as you are, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem, don't worry. So yes, Mike, is it easy to eradicate the vice since it's a multi-billion organization? So one thing I have to say is trafficking is kind of, it's like a mafia kind of setting because you find the people, it's a multi-billion system where you find that the people involved in trafficking are the same people governing us in the countries. People who are lawmakers, they could be investors in the country that contribute to the different chipping, for the different projects that the government is running. Or they could be influential members of the community or the society or the country that you are considered, in brackets, untouchable. So the only way you can beat such a system, I believe, is by people being vigilant enough and being able to identify that I am worthy, I do not need to expose myself in this system. What am I saying? If you look at Uganda per se, we do not have a law that says, you know what, as a young person, this is the minimum. If you're employed, you should be given. There's not an outright law stating what you should earn as a minimum wage. So if that is not there, then what else? Circumvent the system, beat the system, don't fight the people, but fight the system. And how are we going to fight the system? Let's educate, create awareness, and advocate, make people realize the dangers of trafficking, what trafficking is. In Uganda now, we've dealt with so many cases where bodies had to be returned, or people were abused, and the girl ended up dying. And so many companies, their licenses are being revoked because of the voice of the people. As CSOs, we are trying to protect the victims that are saved, from the trafficking, and ensuring that the different traffickers that are identified are prosecuted. But how can they be prosecuted effectively? Let us protect the victims because they are crucial, they're important, and these people are ready to do anything, even kill a soul, to save their reputation and their faces from being exposed. So let's educate the young people. Let's advocate for creating opportunities for the young people, because the old people do not want to retire. If you look at the percentage of, let's say, East African region, the youth are the majority and it's the youth that are employed. What does that mean? If they cannot get work to do, they end up involving themselves in crime, or they will not give anything to lose and go and be trafficked because they have nothing to lose and nothing to go back to at home. So can we create these opportunities? Can we look at our education system? Is it creating more job seekers and not job creators? What can we do as parents, the community, to ensure that the young people can get skills, they're able to identify the skills they can build on back home and earn out of it? We all want white collar jobs. I know it's fancy, it's cool to say I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, you know, I'm an accountant, but are you being paid what you're worthy? Is what you're taking back home enough to make you survive and grow your income? What are the other multiple sectors of income you can get to build yourself? You know, what skills do you have that can make you say, you know what, enough is enough. I don't have to take more of this, you know, exploitation, blackmail, and overworking. Let me do something of my own. And you have faith in yourself to do that. Are we training our kids to do that? Are we training the youth to do that? Are we skilling the youth? Is the government doing something about it? Or even if they're not doing it, are we doing it as parents, as sisters, as peers? Are we encouraging our colleagues and admiring them and respecting the skills that they're developing to do something for themselves, or are we laughing at them? So the more that we stigmatize, discriminate against people who we feel are not in the white collar or the middle class sector to be able to be employed and do a certain kind of work, the more we are creating vulnerabilities to the young people, and it's the more that they're going to be victims and vulnerable enough to be trafficked. So let us brainwash ourselves from the colonizers' way of believing that this is what it should be. And then we create a new path of what could be for the young people not to be victims, and for this system to be dismantled by us as a community, because it's not easy to dismantle them. Thank you. I hope that has answered the question that was forwarded to me.
Can you hear me? I've seen that Parfait Zaimana has something to say. We can give him just a few seconds. Parfait. Karibu.
Yes, thank you. So I have just a comment to add on, and my comment is mainly on the creating opportunities for the youth, because we see that more youth, they have many have the education, but they lack opportunities like the ways of starting their new maybe businesses, or maybe new things that can help them, like to entertain themselves. And then we find that more of them are tempted to go outside, and then they fall in those traps of traffickers. For the opportunities, what I mean most is that we lack really platforms that help the youth, like to know better what they, how to use the knowledge they have. Because we see that many, they start their enterprises, but less of them, they have the knowledge of how to run them. For example, for us in Rwanda, we have a small student organization, which is called the Young Economists Forum, based at Kimani Independent University. Among our works, what we do is just to help the youth who have enterprises, or even other people who have run into businesses, to know how to manage them. You may find that someone has an industry, but he doesn't even have an accountant of that industry. How is that industry going to run? How is that industry going to survive if it doesn't have like the right knowledge of doing accounts, the right knowledge of doing each and everything? You find that they start, but in the middle of the way, they are failing, and then they end up like falling in those traps of the human traffickers. And because most of them, though they have the will and the little capital that they have, they use to invest, they less have like the knowledge of how to manage those things that they have. And at the end, they find themselves like falling in those traps of the human traffickers. But I think that if if we create room for those opportunities, because they don't have those accountants, and they don't have those people help them to, those consultants to help them to the income that, or the money that they can use to pay them. But if we create those opportunities that can help them like to grow up the industries and build them, I think that that willingness of going outside, of that willingness of dropping everything and moving out, just seeking for a better life, a better excitement outside, I think that that can reduce, because most of them, they will be having ways and opportunities. And for the workers, the domestic workers, as she said before, I think that if the workers, those domestic workers have unions, like for example, here in Rwanda, where we find that domestic workers, they have unions, means they have the domestic workers unions, which are looking for their interest, which are looking for their well-being. I think that in those countries also, if they have their unions, which help them to foresee, like if they are not abused at home, if they are not abused, if they are paid really what they should be paid, if the ones who are engaged are not even underage, I think that those trafficking can be reduced considerably. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Parfait Nzeimana. And thank you so much, Naima, for great ideas. So Joyce, it's your time now. I think we are left with a few minutes. If someone else has a question to ask, you are welcome. But I can't also forget the wonderful comment from Naima, where she said that journalists need to protect victims, and because most of the time they are targets, since they play crucial role in prosecution process of traffickers. That's true, because if they give their testimony, they might be attacked as well by traffickers. So for journalists, showing their photos, their videos to the public is exposing them to danger. And thank you, Naima, for this, because it's a very wonderful comment. And I'll make sure this comment is shared to my fellow journalists so that they can be careful. Joyce, welcome back again. Joy?
Oh, my mic was off.
Okay. I think.
Thank you.
I think you are almost done. We are almost done. Yeah.
Yeah, we are actually done now. We're done. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
You've done a phenomenal job in terms of breaking down. First, when you started talking about the kafar system and breaking that down and leading us into policies. So thank you so much for that. Masisi, thank you so much for the poem that you rendered. It was a beautiful submission. To our panelists, Patience, you are doing phenomenal work in Rwanda, working with commercial sex workers and women who are in very, very, very vulnerable situation is definitely a calling. And thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and the insight which you have brought. For me, what my takeaway from what you have taught me, Patience, is I need to look at, when I'm thinking about human trafficking, I need to ask myself what my role has been in it as well, because I have a role to play. If I make people feel excluded, then if I have a child and they turn up pregnant and I turn them away, then definitely I am contributing to the problem. So thank you. Thank you, Patience. I pray that your organization grows and that the work you do keeps growing and growing and growing and helping other people. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Naima. Sorry, I was just checking to remember who was not there, then I remembered it's Joyce. Thank you, Naima. Naima, thank you for your insight, Naima. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for reminding women to stand for women, and even and talking about the role. I mean, I feel like this was a bit of intersection between Joyce and yourself when you're talking about the role that the media plays in shaping the narrative that women are the only ones who get trafficked. But it isn't just women, it's also men who need to speak up for their own good. But women are still the majority because of the patriarchal nature of the society. So because they need to go and be house helps and fend for their family and things like that. So we're pretty much feeding the same dragon. Yeah. So thank you so much, Naima, for calling women out and saying that women need to support other women and stand for other women. So thank you. Thank you to each and every panelist who had been here and has had to leave. I am terribly, terribly sorry that you missed the last bit of this, but thank you for your contributions. Thank you to GTalk. GTalk is doing amazing, phenomenal work. And GTalk was represented by Joyce and Judie. They both left earlier, but they left their communication and said, if you need to get in touch with GTalk, please do. And they left an email address, which I am hoping like the back end team has put out that email address in like I think this is streaming on Facebook and yeah, on Facebook. So there's an email address that was availed to us by GTalk. I hope that will be availed to you as well. So if you need to get in touch with GTalk and need to find out what GTalk does, please go follow up and find and plug into the marvelous work that GTalk does. Thank you, Anika Initiative. I'm sorry, it is not it is not Anika Initiative, it is Wibena Impact. So Anika Initiative is like a sister project to Wibena. So I'm sorry, my bad. That is a bluff moment. I'm so sorry. but yeah, thank you, Wibena. Thank you for availing this platform. Thank you for organizing for this conversation. Speaking for myself, I have learned so much, and judging by the comments and the feedback from everyone who's watching, it has been a learning process. So thank you. Thank you to each and every guest who has been here, who has engaged with us. I hope you get to share this conversation with other people. And from my end, I just have a lot of thank yous. So thank you again and be safe.
And thank you, Joy. And thank you, Joy, for doing a wonderful and tremendous job for hosting this event. It was a pleasure to be with you for hosting this panel with you. And thank you and God bless you. And thanks to everyone who have commented and gave us comments on the message on chat box. So especially Patience, Naima, and Dati Shapwara, Moses Ojambo. So thank you so much, and thank you, and a big thank you to you, Joy. So God bless you.
Yes, you too. Thank you, Mike. It has been a pleasure as well. So I think we have come to the end, and we would like to wrap this up. So kwaherini. Bye.
Nakagaruka. That's in Kinyarwanda language.
Say that again.